Welcome back to the video that will answer all of your questions about building contractors. Part 1 was an overview of the basic terminology that's kind of involved in the construction phase. We went over 3 main scenarios how interior designers would work with contractors, and I touched a little bit on the project management side as well. And now it's time for part 2, which is all about the how. Let me take you through the process of working with a contractor step by step. We'll start with research and due diligence, move on to briefing, and wrap up with reviewing, updating, and finalizing the quotes. Top tip for starting to look for a contractor or finding a contractor is going to be trust your fellow designers and ask for recommendations. If I ask for a recommendation for a contractor from a fellow designer, I know that they will put forward the right option and a contractor that they trust. This will be slightly harder if you don't have a design community around you, if you are just starting out. If that's the case, then you will have to go online and rely on the information that you can find there. So here's the things that you need to look for in a good contractor, whether it's online or in real life. One thing that has proven time and time over again is that you have to feel comfortable around the contractor and their team, otherwise it will not work out. You know that you have found a good contractor when you can have a good professional conversation about the job, about the designs, but you can also have a laugh, feel relaxed, and have a conversation beyond the project on site. I know it sounds a little bit like a perfect dating profile, which kind of it is, because we are, starting a bit of a relationship here. But trust me, when it comes to communication, it is really important to have this ticked off. The amount of flexibility either side can really make or break the project. If you are invited to consult during the construction phase, then you will most likely be working with the contractors daily, weekly. So you kind of want to make sure that these are people that you are actually enjoying to work with. So the better your relationship with the contractor, the smoother and more successful the construction phase will be. Another obvious thing is their portfolio. The work will speak for itself, and it will show the kind of level and quality of work that they can deliver. Sometimes, and ideally, they will have some local projects that they have worked on, and they can suggest you to go and have a visit and have a look around, or even better, if they have any live projects that they are happy to welcome you on, then you can go and visit the site and see everything in action. You can see how their teams work, or what the cleanliness of the site is, how organized everyone is, and again, have a conversation with the team on site, not just the main people that you are briefing and dealing with. This process, as you can imagine, can be quite time consuming, so make sure that you do this way before you even have a project to discuss. And always be on a lookout for more contractors, just in case your top 2 or top 3 are unavailable and you need to find someone new. You might also come across instances where the contractor has actually been selected by the client. In part 1 we talked about this, my brother's a tiler, my cousin is a joiner type of scenario. So if that's the case, then you can only pray and hope that you will get along with them and they will do a good job. And you can obviously always decline to maybe get involved in the construction phase if you are not feeling the contractor, but there is always a risk that the client could drop you and not even reward you with the project. So it's a bit of a diva move if you do that, but if it feels right, feels right. And there's an option that the contractor actually has been selected by the client, but they are open for some suggestions, so you can still approach a contractor from your own list, do the whole process with them, present them to the client, and if they like the cost, if they like the portfolio of the company, then they might go with your contractor. Okay, so let's go through a little bit of a checklist on what is a good contractor. Obviously, good reviews online, good recommendations from fellow designers or even past clients, always a big green flag. Portfolio that represents the size of the project and the quality of work that you are looking for. So for example, if you are looking at an office refurbishment project but the contractor's portfolio is mostly residential work. It could be that it is not the right match this time. You can obviously still go ahead if you have the faith in the contractor that they will be able to carry out that commercial work, but always be careful with this scenario. Good communication, once again, and a healthy attitude towards the job is a must from the very beginning. Last thing that you want to do is work with someone who doesn't respect your time, your design, your opinions. We also don't want to deal with drama and people who love to play the blame game. Everything is always figure outable, and we all have to work together as a team to figure things out. It doesn't matter whose blame it is, we'll deal with that later. But when stuff hits the fan, we need to come together and make sure that we can communicate and resolve the issue. And also, when it comes to communication, a good contractor will ask a lot of questions. The reason I wanted to include this is because the most experienced, knowledgeable, and just the best contractors, they know their work inside out. They've done jobs before and learned from them, so they will know all of the questions that they need to ask before they are able to sit down and quote for the project. So this goes back a little bit to the blame game scenario, but also professionalism in a way that the company represents themselves. Contractors who usually work on handshakes and kind of, well, we'll see how this goes, usually don't have the right insurances, the right policies in place, which means that there could be a lot of issues during the time on site. When there are clear processes in place, there is a website that you can go to, there is even some social media presence, then you know that you are dealing with a legit business who has all the right things in place. Okay, so you've gone through the list, you've gone through the recommendations, narrowed it down, picked your favorite contractors. Now it's time to quote for the project and go through the briefing stage. So before you can actually approach and sit down with a contractor, you will need to know the scope of works, which is basically a list of jobs and things that they will have to take care of in order to bring your vision to life. It could be a simple presentation with all of your look and feel boards, floor plans and 3D visuals with some notes on the side, or it could be a fully detailed drawing pack. It all depends on how you work as a designer, how far the actual project is gone in the design process, and also what the contractor sometimes prefer to receive from you. When you are first sitting down with a contractor, it's still very conversational and everything's up for discussion. Your project could still be in the conceptual phase on the design side of things, so you might not even know all the ins and outs and all of the detail because you are still discussing it with the client. But we have to start somewhere, and it is very healthy to start discussing costs and the budget during the concept design stage. So usually when I approach my contractor for the briefing session, I will have all of my concept proposal presentation ready, and I will add all the specification onto the side of visuals, or take an extra snapshot of a piece of joinery and then add notes to it. So that's how I like to work. Other design companies love to make proper elevations and detail it very finely. It depends from project to project. And sometimes I also have a CAD file handy to send it out to the contractor if they are asking for it, because it's a lot easier for them to open that CAD file and get all the right dimensions. Obviously, always make a note and make sure that they know that they need to do a proper site survey themselves. Do not take that responsibility yourself, but it is good to have this CAD file and these details at this high level cost plan stage. When it comes to actually sitting down with the contractor and briefing them on the project, I prefer to have a in-person meeting. Usually my contractors are local, you know, anywhere from half an hour to an hour's drive away, which is always handy. But if you don't have that option, you can always jump on a video call and discuss your project through a screen share. So we've already established that usually at this briefing stage, your project will be at a concept design stage, which is great. You've got the visuals, you've got the vision, you've got the feel for it. Another thing that you need to know on top of this is the finishes. You might not know the exact collection or the exact product that you want to use, but you at least need to understand what price range you are dealing with. So for example, if we are talking about flooring finishes with the contractor, I would say I would like this to be a vinyl flooring, or I will say I'd like this to be a hardwood floor. So you can see where the price difference comes in. Or if we are discussing countertops, surfaces, is it a natural stone? Is it something like Corian or Hymax? Or is it a stone effect laminate finish? So you need to have a good understanding where you want to pitch at, and if you want the contractor to quote for both the real stone and the laminate finish, then you can always ask for that. I've done that a lot in my project where I felt like we might have some flexi room, you know, some wriggle room to either have a nicer flooring and then maybe save costs somewhere else. I've always asked for that extra option and see if they are happy to do it for me. Another big thing that your scope of works needs to include is exclusions. Include the exclusions. So for example, sometimes a client will deal with their own HVAC consultant. So the main contractor doesn't need to allow for the cost and doesn't need to take responsibility for it. Or maybe the skip hire and the removal of the existing interior will be carried out by the client's team. Again, the main contractor doesn't need to worry about it. He knows that his team can just show up on the day and start work right away. So make sure you have an exclusions list. Add this question in your client briefing document as well. If you haven't asked what's excluded or what will the client's team take on, then you can't brief your contractor about it. And also make sure that you attach the exclusions list to every single quote that has been sent out, whether to the client or the contractor or any third parties. And I would even add it onto the emails just to highlight it again, make sure that everyone has been looped in. So hopefully you've got a couple of options, if not 3, so you can really understand how much your project should cost. Some contractors love to put extra margins on, while some like to cut the margins out. But at least if you have these options, you can kind of see where the baseline should be. Do keep in mind that this process does take time. Usually the standard answer that I get from contractors is to wait for 2 weeks until I will get the first copy of their quotes. And if you think that you are briefing 3 different contractors, mostly at 3 different times, then this process can start to get really time consuming. The more people involved, the longer it takes, the more revisions you have to make, the more confusing it all gets. Once you have received and kind of read the quote that they've sent you, it is a good practice to actually schedule in whether an in-person meeting or a call to go through the quote item by item to make sure that everything's included and all the exclusions are there as well. Or maybe your design has changed, because again, remember, this could still be the concept design stage, and in the last 2 weeks there have been some updates, there have been some discussions with the client, so design has been updated and maybe the contractor hasn't received those updates yet. So it is important to go through everything line by line, item by item. There also will be things that you probably didn't discuss during the briefing stage, especially if you are working with this contractor for the first time. So things like permits and working hours, safeguarding and staff training, insurance policies, the overall project timeline. There's a lot that needs to be discussed and a lot of small print that you need to go through and double check. If it seems a little bit overwhelming, I understand it is, but I'm here to tell you that it does get a lot more, I wouldn't say easier, because it's always quite stressful and there's a lot of nuances to think about, but it does become a lot more natural. Even a decade later, and having worked with loads of contractors on site, I still discover new things that I should be thinking about and asking about with every single project. If you are worried about the cost side of things and kind of dealing with the budgets and the quotes and all of that, that gets easy as well as you get a better understanding on how much things cost. I would actually like to encourage you to not shy away from these budget conversations and really just asking a genuine question. why does it cost what it costs? Because that will give you a better understanding about what you should be putting in your design proposals for each client. This also goes back to your discovery call when you are discussing the vision and the budget, because you can be a lot more honest and actually come across as a lot more professional and knowledgeable if you can discuss the budget at this early stage. So if your client is painting the vision of all of these wonderful things, but their budget is 10k, then you can step in and actually start to manage their expectations and give them some realistic information that is based on your experience in previous projects. One big thing to remember is that you and the contractor will become a team. Like it or not, but if you are invited to kind of oversee or consult during the installation phase, then you will probably have to deal with the contractor a lot. So keep all of these things in mind. Make sure that your relationship with the contractor is healthy and you've got a good communication going back and forth. Just be good human beings. I think that is the best approach if you want to eliminate and even solve all the challenges and problems that can happen on site. I hope these two videos have been insightful. You've learned something, you can take something away and put into practice. As always, the comment section is open. Please drop a comment, let me know what you think. If you have any questions or maybe you want to hear something more about this topic, let me know in the comments. I will link part 1 in the description. It's coming up on the side as well, so make sure you check that out. And if I don't see you there, then I'll see you in the next one. Bye.